one of those things that I just love to work with is fragrance, smells, flowers, the leaves, you'll see later with Dennis too, and I have a few things on leaves also. But most people just assume you only have smelling flowers in the maybe spring and then the summer, and they don't think about the fall and the winter. And we can have flowers that bloom and have great smell all year long. And there's very few times when I can go out in my area and not have something that I can put my nose in and get a nice, great whiff, which is always uplifting. It's good for the blood pressure to go down and your spirits to go up. So that's what it is, you know, all four seasons. We're going to start off with the sort of the spring, and all of these things are not written in stone. Some spring, depending on the type of the year and what our weather's been like, some things can be earlier, some things can be later, so this is just a very general. The first thing they start out with is the viburnums. Absolutely love viburnums. It's a huge group. There are so many wonderful plants in there. One of my favorites is the Burkwoodii. It is one of the very first of the viburnums to come out, although on your handout there is one called Dawn. I don't have that. When I was researching this, it came up several times as one of the earliest viburnums and one of the best smelling. So obviously that's on my wish list. And I'll have one of those pretty soon. But that's a wonderful, the viburnums will do well in the sun. They'll do well in almost shade. They won't flower nearly as much and they'll be much leggier, but full sun, partial sun, a light shade, and then after that you're starting to get into not as many pretty blooms like this one. I'm sure that the picture that Trish took is probably in a full sun area with all those blooms on it. Korean spice is just slightly after the Burkwoodii. Oh, I did that.
Yep.
Scared myself. You said I would scare myself. Okay. This is where it starts with these really bright reddish pink buds that are starting to come out in a nice big cluster. And they come out, as you can see, they come all out, and then these are still, so over probably 2 weeks, 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks, you have this amazing smell coming from this. And you can see from the background that there's not a leaf out there that's totally before anything is starting to come out. Wonderful fragrance. They can get fairly large, the Korean spice does. My one is probably 10 feet tall, maybe 12, but I've never pruned it. And it's in an area where I can just let it do its thing. So if you want to keep it cut back, you can keep it much smaller. Also on your list, there is one that's called compactum, which says that it only gets to be about 4 feet tall. I think 4 or 5 is on the list. So that would be, I mean, they're coming up with new things all the time, as we all know. There's something new to get no matter when you go out. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have any native ones that you could recommend, or are there even native ones?
Viburnums?
Yes.
I have no idea. I don't think viburnum is native, is it?
Yes.
Are there?
There's native viburnums,
Yeah.
but the
Okay.
fragrance is nil.
Oh, okay. No fragrance on those, supposedly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Cindy, when are we talking about these that are going to start blooming? What month?
These guys would be February, March, when these guys are starting to come out. The Burkwoodii would definitely be February. The Korean spice would probably be more like the beginning of March. Now this year, a lot of my plants that bloom in February, March were blooming January and February because we had such a weird spring. I love them. You go into these are some vines. We have the Confederate jasmine, which is an evergreen, and it is lovely. You have a little bit of a protected area for that. Because sometimes it'll get burned, like in the 3 degrees that we had this year. But mine's against a wall, so it did very well. You've got your Carolina jasmine, which most people just see up in the trees. This is on a fence on Jones Franklin Road in Cary. That's why it's a little blurry, because I took it as we were driving. And I was not driving. I saw it. It was all along that fence, and I said, oh my gosh. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, and I can't even imagine how wonderful that smells to walk past that on that sidewalk. I have some where I am in the woods, And so I have a canopy of yellow, and when you're walking underneath it, you can smell it. It's just a wonderful smell. And this are deciduous azaleas. A lot of people don't really look at deciduous azaleas as much as they should. They're a wonderful plant. They are a lot of native ones. They come in a lot of different colors, and most of them are really, really pretty. The pink, I have one on the other side of my porch that's a bright orange. They have awesome smells. And then you can see there's a Carolina jasmine in there too. He sort of rambled around. I didn't pull him up, and then, you know, when you don't pull something up, it just takes over. So he's in there too, but they have wonderful smells. And then it has a really pretty, nice leaf in the rest of the summer. But those deciduous, and those are native. So you can have a lot of really great things with the native azaleas. Convallaria, I think I'm pronouncing it right, probably the last one. Lily of the Valley, that's one of those old-fashioned pass-along plants that you hear a lot of. And they sort of, I don't know, for a long time you didn't really hear about them a lot. I think they're coming back into popularity. But they're more shade tolerant. They love the shade. They like understory areas there. But that is an amazing smell. When you have a nice colony of them, you can really get a nice smell. Also on retaining walls where you can walk past them is great. They'll go away after probably midsummer. They start to go dormant. But that's a real, and they come in all different kinds of things now. They have striped leaves and some that have like water spots on them. I think there are some that have, even the flowers have pink tinges to them. Okay. I don't have any of those. Again, the wish list keeps growing.
They grow very slow, but they...
Now, some of these can grow very quickly, but like you said, most of the time, unless there's in perfect soil, they will grow a little bit slower. I love dianthus. Oops, passed them up, didn't I? I have told people all along that I had Bass pink along my path. Well, I don't. I have fire witch because it's not that really light, but Bass pink is a wonderful clovey smell, and the fire witch also has a very nice spicy fragrance to it. In the early spring, you will have a real great show of the dianthus. But throughout the rest of the year, all summer long into the fall, you will have little sporadic flowers coming out all along, so that the pretty gray-green foliage I really like it. It's sort of really fine looking, but you'll occasionally have these real pretty little spots of color in there for the whole summer. So great early on, and then just little splashes the rest of the year. It grows fairly slowly, but it will cover it'll cover thickly. Calycanthus is another one of those old-fashioned pass-along plants that we used to have, and I think they're coming back because they're different colors. Some of them have variegated leaves. I saw pictures of yellow and white, sort of a pinkish, and some that are a little more open. They have a center that's really pretty. But I've always heard it called Sweet Betsy. But you can see, this is why you go by scientific names, because you can get sweet shrub. There's several things out there that people call sweet shrubs or spice bushes. Carolina allspice is pretty much just a Calycanthus, but it is a great one. My sister has a huge patch, probably maybe 4 feet by about 6 feet, and this spring it was amazing. I walked past the area and the whole yard smelled like that. It's a really soft, but it's very noticeable fragrance. It's just lovely, and you can see the little flowers are sort of hiding in there. They're not really in your face, but they let their presence be known by the beautiful smells. It is a shade plant in a lot of respects. It will also do well in the sun, but if in the shade, it'll get taller. Yes, ma'am.
Native?
Yes.
What was that?
Native? Yes, that is a
And it
native.
suckers.
Now, yes, it does. It will grow in really good soil. You can get it to go, and I think on there it has like 4 feet plus, because it can keep going. If you have a path in the way, most of the time that'll sort of stop it a little bit. But it's not as bad as like Bermuda grass or something like that just takes over. But yes, it will, in really good moist soil, it will keep going out. This is an odd looking picture, I thought, because it has sort of leaning branches. All of the ones I've ever seen have been pretty straight up, so I don't know why that is, but it's a pretty picture. Lilies. Now, people get confused, and I always have to look it up myself, the difference between Asiatic and Oriental. 99% of your Asiatic lilies do not have fragrance, but they bloom earlier. So you have a pretty thing. The Oriental lilies do have, 99% of those do have fragrance. There are a few that don't. These are also things that when you're looking for fragrance in a plant, the best time to get them is when they are actually in bloom so that you can smell them. Back on the Sweet Betsy, you have some Sweet Betsies that have really intense fragrance, and you have some Sweet Betsies now that don't have any fragrance at all. It's either been bred out of them or it just, that particular line doesn't have any fragrance. So the best way to get the fragrance you want is to get it when it's in bloom, or like go to my sister's yard and say, can I have some of it? And she'll say yes, and you can take it home, because they do transplant very well. So with the Oriental lilies, they are so varied. I'm sure most of you know lilies anyway. They are everywhere from white to deep, deep colors. They can be anywhere from just 2 to 3 feet tall to 7, 8 feet tall. They're amazing. So whatever you need in your yard for structure, for color, you can get it there. A lot of the Oriental lilies will bloom over a maybe 2-week period, not much longer than that. But you know, this is a stargazer, which is a very popular one, has a lovely smell, and it's just starting to bloom in my yard now, and it'll probably be blooming for another 2 weeks. It just opened up on this weekend, but they're so fun. They're just great. Of course, we all know about the roses, and there are now shrub roses, bush roses. You have your regular tea and hybrids and all those kind of roses, and then you have your knockouts. The shrub roses and the bush roses can stay small. A lot of those are just 2 feet, maybe up to 3 to 4 feet. People used to, well, when the knockout roses first came in, people assumed that they were going to stay small, but they do not. Mine, before I got rosette disease, were up to about 6 feet, the ones that I never pruned, and just as thick as any blackberry hedge you've ever seen. Just huge. So I started pruning some of them out, but I eventually got rosette disease, and I only have 1 tree rose left, and it's right beside the house, and I'm hoping that it will stay protected, but I had to take out 17. And then again, that's what you're not supposed to do. A row of anything is just asking for trouble. That's why you're supposed to intersperse different things. And if I had done it, I still might have had rosette disease, but I might not have lost all of them, because the little mite only floats in the air. He doesn't have wings, supposedly. So if I had had something in the middle to break it, they might not have gotten all of my roses. But that's another one. No, and I don't know why I did it. I did. You know, you just go. I know that I could have had a V8 kind of thing, and you just go, oh my gosh.
Cindy,
Yes.
I thought the rose rosette was a virus, but it's a mite?
It's a mite that spreads the virus. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you're right, it is a virus. And if you are pruning roses, never go from one bush to the other, even if you don't have it. Always sanitize your pruners. It's always a good idea to sanitize your pruners between any new plant and the next plant.
How long ago did you get your rosette issue?
I pulled them out 2 years ago. I had it 2 years before that in the very front of my house in the hill, and I was hoping if I got those out, but it didn't work. They went too. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't think the knockout roses were fragrant except for the sunny yellow.
That's another thing that people don't realize, that my knockout roses were just the plain old double, single red, absolutely amazing smell. In the first flush in the spring, I could sit there And when the wind was blowing at you, you just go, oh my gosh, I could, if you could bottle it, literally.
Well, I've got the pink ones, and there's absolutely no fragrance.
Again, now you can find these red ones with no smell. They're azaleas, the pink ruffle. If you get the right pink ruffles in azaleas, those are amazing smells, but you can also get a pink ruffle that has no smell. So again, the best thing to do is to just buy them when they're in bloom. It's hard to do because, you know, they get in bloom and people buy them right away. But, you know, if you frequent your good nursery and are constantly waiting for the new stock to come in, you can get them. Or, you know, talk to them and order it. Now, Dennis will talk about some from leaves and foliage fragrance, but another thing that people forget about are your herbs that some of them are perennial. Your oregano, the lemon thyme is, sage is, this basil is not, but you know, you've got to have basil. I love the smell of basil. But these you can plant in a planter. You can plant them on walls next, and then just rub your hand over them and get that lovely smell. You put some oregano in a hanging basket, and you have some flowers that spill out of it. You've got a gorgeous smell and beautiful flowers at the same time. Plus, when you're walking in the house, you pick your oregano and cook with it. And that is, I mean, that's great. I actually have an oregano on my walkway that I planted like I'm supposed to, and I do use it. It's wonderful. I actually get to cook with it. Another one where the leaves are really beautiful, the scented dreams. Now those mostly are annuals, but they're well worth the time to plant them again in hanging baskets where you can just rub your hand over them. They come in all kinds of smells. They have apple and they have orange and they have mint flavors and plus they're a pretty little flower. I mean, those are beautiful little flowers. And then there's your rosemary, which you can plant the low-growing rosemary, or if you're, you know, again, walking in the house, you have a nice tall upright bush. You can brush by it on the way out to work, and on the way in, you just pick off a little piece and then cook with it when you get in the house. Pretty bluish purple flowers in the springish summer, just lovely. And as long as it's well drained, because they are a Mediterranean, which most of your herbs are basically Mediterranean. Lots of sun, lots of good drainage. The alosia, is that right, Trish? Did I pronounce it right?
Close enough.
Okay. Thank you. We have been, Trish McPherson works with me in, well, I work with her in the Waterwise garden at the fairgrounds. And we have a great time experimenting with plants. We go get something and it says it's going to bloom in October because we have to look really good in October. So we try to tend to get to these things. The sweet almond verbena, there are lots of different names it goes by, supposedly blooms in October. We planted one year and it did bloom in October. It was lovely, it just didn't make it through the winter. So we tried it again, didn't we?
No, couldn't find another one.
Oh, that's right. Well, we'll try it again down the road, but it has these beautiful white flowers on them, and they have a lovely smell. Really pretty, and it supposedly gets to be 6-8 feet tall. Now ours, we planted from a little bitty thing, and it got to be about 4 feet, and it was just lovely. And then, of course, butterfly bushes. The old-fashioned ones didn't have a whole lot of smell, but nowadays they do. A lot of the purples have real nice smells to them. This, it said it was bicolor, but it sure looks like it's got 3 colors on it to me. But that one has a lovely smell. There's a yellow one that has a very nice buttery or honey type smell to it. So, and again, with the butterfly bushes, the old-fashioned ones got to be 10, 12, 2 stories high. But nowadays, they have the chips that only get to like 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet, and then they have, I think, Chip Junior that stays even smaller. So there is a bush that you can put in a nice, sunny, bright location that will fit your needs. That's just great. And they do okay in a little bit of shade, but you're not gonna get nearly the flowers that you would in a sun location. And if you have nothing better to do on a hot summer day, and go out and deadhead them a little bit, and you will get a bigger flush of new flowers about a week or so later. Okay, Hedychium, right? I practiced that one. Ginger lilies. It's not a lily, has nothing to do with a lily. It is not even a true ginger, although they said you can eat the root. It just doesn't have much flavor, so why bother?
For us.
Yes, yes. There are a lot of different types of gingers. They bloom differently. This one over here, they say blooms, each pseudostem has the flowers on it. Once it's flowered, it dies back. A lot of these will send up new stems a lot faster. I won't pronounce that right. This one supposedly puts up new stems much quicker. So you'll have blooms all summer long. I have never had any luck with the ginger lily, but getting ready for this, I learned why. They are, in their native habitat, they come up in the monsoon season, which means lots of water. So they need to be planted somewhere where they get good sun, good drainage, but they get lots of water. And that is what I have been not giving them. Decent water, but not lots of water. They don't want to drown, but they do need a good bit of water to produce properly. And these also come in lots of different sizes. You can get some that are as short as about 3 feet, but they also get to be 6, 7 feet tall, and they have that pretty long leaf, a lot like a canna. Different colored foliage now. They have stripes and maroons. I think they do have some splashy ones now. So there's all kinds, and they're there until they freeze. Once they start sending up their stems, they will be there until they freeze. Now they will, in really, really good soil, they will also spread a lot, but in most people's regular garden soil, they don't spread nearly as much as they could. And again, it's another great pass along, because once it gets out of where you want it to be, just go in there and slice off about 3 islets of it, or 3, I don't know what they call it. It's a rhizome, but it's, yeah, the little points where the stem is going to come up. Get about 3,
Nodes.
Nodes. Okay, that sounds good. I'll buy that. You're sold. So you get it, yeah, eyes. So you get 3 of those, and you know you're going to have a plant. So you can cut it back and then pass it to your neighbors or your friends. That's a fun one. You get into the salvias. Now, to me, most salvias foliage, the flowers don't really smell. It's the foliage. Most of that smells like Chef Boyardee meatballs to me. Lots of people say it smells like this or that, or some is not so nice, some are a lot better, but to me it just, I can see a can of Chef Boyardee.
It's a good memory.
It is. Now, we have pineapple sage, the red, at the Waterwise Garden, and that is just beautiful. It is spectacular in September, October. Just amazing. They come, sages now, there's lots of breeding programs. They come in all kinds of colors. I just picked, this is a very popular black and blue. Now, this one, if you look at your chart, it says, I think, 4 to 6 feet wide, and I put a plus because if you have good soil or no barriers, it can sort of keep on going. We fight it a lot at the Waterwise. It's still so beautiful that we haven't pulled it out and made it go away because it's just so pretty in the fall. And then they also come in lots of different color or sizes. You can get some that won't be much more than 18 inches tall. The black and blue, if we don't cut it back, it'll be 5 or 6 feet tall. You can see this is on a house here. But if you cut it back, we usually cut in June and July, right? June. Cut it back about 1/3 at least. It'll bush out and then it'll come back. We cut it by half though, don't we?
Sometimes depends on how much rain we've got.
There you go. So you know, just at least a little bit, and then that'll help it keep from getting too leggy. This is something we just tried, and I'm so excited about this. That is the right one, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because there are lots of scented, but that was the one, and it says popcorn plant, and Trish said it smells like popcorn. So we got the little thing, and we planted it, and we were rubbing it, and it smells just like butter from the movie theater. It really does. And it was so exciting. Some guy walked past the Water Wise garden, and we were just planted it, and he chatted to us for a second. I said, we just planted this, you've got to smell it. And he went up there and he smelled it, and he said, I don't smell anything. And Trish and I looked at him and go, how can you not smell that? But Dennis will tell you that everybody's nose is different, and that's why you have to sniff something, because something that smells good to me may, you know, make you want to go somewhere else. But it really does. And if I was, which I work at the horticulture building now, but if I was down there at the Water Wise garden during the fair, that poor plant would be all torn up because I'd be having people sniff it all the time. But that's a fun thing. It's supposed to be hardy in this area. It's supposed to come back, so we'll see. We will be testing it out. That's a fun thing of testing plants like that. It really is. Now the Katsura tree is supposed to smell like either cotton candy, some people say cinnamon, some people say burnt sugar, when the leaves are rubbed, and I've never known it, but you smelled them, haven't you, Trish?
There's one here, yes, that
Oh, okay.
smells like cotton candy to me.
There you go. And I mean, that's a beautiful tree in the fall. That's a gorgeous color. Another pass-along plant are the crinum lilies. Again, they're not a lily, but that's just what they're called. That's a very old-fashioned plant, and they do multiply, big, huge bulbs. Once you get a big old clump of them, you can either dig the whole thing up and then give away, you know, 50 bulbs in a patch. Most of the crinums do have good smells. This is another one where you want to smell it before you buy it or get it from a good friend that says, oh yes, these smell wonderful. There's lots of breeding. There are Americrinums. They also, some have good smell, some don't. But they come in just a regular white, which is the old-fashioned. They have pink. They have deep, sort of a real pretty raspberry color. They have stripes. They have really thin leaves or thin petals on them. But they're a lovely plant. They will take full sun, because there are some, if you're looking at the Carscott building on the fairgrounds, on the left-hand side, there are lots of the crinums over there. Or they will even do well in partial shade. Again, you won't get nearly the blooms that you should, but that's a wonderful plant.
Cindy?
Yes, ma'am.
I read one time that once they mature like that the bulb's so big, it's hard to dig it up, that it can be like a
Oh, some of them can be
volleyball.
huge. Yes, they can actually be huge. I don't even know what time it is.
Well, I've determined that I'm just going to have to move or something, because I'm not digging.
That's a plan.
I just chop around the side, because the big strappy leaves, they'll get huge.
Yes, yes. And you want to probably just leave that where it is because it's doing so well. And just keep the babies out of it so it doesn't get...
But it's blooming now with raspberry pink,
oh,
fragrant blooms, and there's like 10 to 12 blooms on every stalk. And they just gradually open.
Just gorgeous.
Thanks for bringing them for us.
I wish I
Yes, ma'am.
Cindy, mine's not blooming. What?
Oh, I was just going to say something about that. Now, if, like daffodils and crocus and some other things, as they multiply and they don't have your nice, soft, loamy soil where they can go out and be happy, where they're in there and they're getting crowded more and more like sardines, they will start blooming less and less and less. So if you have a patch that is losing its blooms, it's not quite as pretty as it's been in the past, it's probably time to get out there and dig them up, separate them, pass along the ones you don't want, or replant them in somewhere else. But that's usually what it is. The other thing would be if your trees have grown over, because you don't really see that every year. You go, I have full sun. Well, 5 years later, you probably have partial sun. So if they're getting less sun, they're probably blooming less.
Or you can move.
Or you can move, yes. Yes, and when you get more shade, have less grass. Grass is a waste of energy. Excuse me, I didn't say that, did I?
Some grasses are nice.
Well, in somebody else's yard, because I don't want to worry with them. Winter is my favorite time to be outside with smells, because usually it's pretty gray. Of course, we have lots of green out there. But you can get so many beautiful flowers and beautiful smells in the wintertime. This is my left of my deck, and you can see all the ice. I just love that picture. It was such a pretty day, and everything there was just sparkling because we had that ice all over it. That was really a pretty day. But in the wintertime, of course, everybody knows about the winter Daphne. I'm on my 4th one, and it so far hasn't decided to leave me yet. I did the first one and didn't realize you're not supposed to put it where it gets wet. Well, it drowned in a minute. Then I put the next one in a nice dry location, but I forgot if it's too dry, it'll die. So there went the second one. The third one, what did I do to it? Too much sun, I think, was the problem for that one. And probably too much water. So this other one I have right in front of my porch. It doesn't get much sun. It's underneath the awning, or my overhang, so it won't get all the water, but it's close enough that I can water it when I need to. So, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. If you don't see it, I forget. But that's, and this one is a deciduous Daphne. And I've only tried it once because it's supposed to be very difficult, and of course I killed the first one. I will have that sooner or later, but, because look at that color, that's just beautiful. And it doesn't get very large. I think I've only seen like 3 or 4 feet. Most Daphnes stay around 2 to 3 feet, although I think Tony Avett had one that was like 4 feet tall before he watched it drowned. He had one of those years we had monsoon season, and he said it was just way too much for him. And they come in the plain green. They have you can see on this one that it has white edges, and deep pink colors, lighter pink, beautiful plants. They're worth the try, because even if you only have them for a couple of years, the smell when they are blooming is just so worth it.
Cindy,
Yes.
does that one in the lower right, the pink, it almost looks like Donfrina when you just first look at it.
Yeah.
But I realize it must be the close-up of the upper left, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Right, Dennis? Those are his pictures.
Yeah, I could tell they were, so that looks like a sort of a container.
Yeah, because that one's very tight. Yeah, the
Yeah.
flowers haven't opened up
Do
yet.
you know the name of that one?
Oreo marginalis or something like that.
Probably, yeah.
What?
It's Oreo marginalis or something like that. It means the white around the edges.
Okay, starting with the letters A, R.
Yeah,
Oh,
A-U,
like
orange.
Okay.
So this is something I love. This is not out much. Most people don't have this in their yards because it's not a real pretty bush. It's just sort of it doesn't have a beautiful form. It doesn't have the most gorgeous leaves, but in the wintertime, and I'm talking usually January and February, these little flowers, and they are not any bigger than your thumb, will open up, and they have the sweetest, most wonderful smell. And they, as with most plants that bloom in the dead of the winter, they bloom sporadically because they know that after this beautiful sunny day, not really sunny, but as good as it gets in the wintertime, there's going to be a freeze. And so these flowers will be brown. But these protected ones that haven't come out will pop out. When he comes out, when he gets frozen, then this little tight guy will come out. So you will have the blooms from this plant for almost a month. It will be blooming off and on, and you will get that wonderful smell. The first time I smelled it, I was out planting something out there, and I said, what is that lovely smell? And I couldn't find it. And just a beautiful, clear, yellow bloom on this, and they hang down, most of them, and just lovely. This particular plant, this is one of the fun things you get where you get a twofer. This yellow is on this side of the plant, and then there's one that has a more frilly, deeper yellow, but it has a pink red center to it. Has a totally different smell. It was in the same pot. It was just two plants in the same pot. So one side has this frilly, pinky kind of flower, and then the other one has this very clear. And they're both lovely smells, but they're both very different. Yes, ma'am?
I know that the deer, in my yard anyway, don't bother the Daphne at all.
Mhm.
But do you know if the Coralopsis, if the deer are interested in it?
I have never seen the deer eat that.
I have some and I haven't had any problem.
Okay.
And I have stuff right beside my oak leaf hydrangea, which gets munched constantly, is right beside it. So if they were interested, so I don't think it does. Edgeworthia. A lot of people are learning more and more about Edgeworthia. The Arboretum has a bunch of really nice specimens here. It's a fun one because it has beautiful sort of tropical leaves in the summertime. It almost always has a nice rounded shape where it doesn't get, well, the old-fashioned one can get to be, I think mine's probably 6 feet tall and I don't know, 10, 12 feet wide, but again, I've never pruned it, I don't care, it just goes crazy. But there are ones out there now that will stay much smaller, and if you keep them pruned, like this one was done as a single stem. Most Edgeworthias will be multi-stems, and if you keep those multi-stems out of there, obviously you're going to keep it much smaller, much from being so wide. But once the leaves turn sort of a yellow and drop off in the fall, you are left with these little things. They're just hanging down, just little gray, fuzzy, hanging down things. And as they get larger, and then into January and February, when a sunny day comes, one of the little flowers will come up and bloom, and it smells so wonderful. And then it gets cold, it goes back, and then another nice warm days, a couple of more will come up. So again, over a very long period of time, you have these pretty little yellow flowers coming and going. These fuzzy, silvery colors are just great in the wintertime. Sometimes when you have the extended warm periods, like a week of nice, good warm weather, it can be out. If you see this one up close, you would see that most of these are open, and the smell on that, I can't even imagine how wonderful that would be. It's a pretty plant. I forget what the technical term is, but most plants come up and they branch like that. This actually branches in threes, so that's why it keeps its rounded shape. So that if you look at it closely, it almost always has 3 new stems coming out every year. So that's how it keeps that really pretty rounded shape. And you can take these little spurs off the bottom, the little sprouts off the bottom, and if you get a little bit of root with them, they'll root very well. It's a pretty bush, it's fun, it's just a very great. This is something I love. Again, it's an evergreen. This one's an evergreen, Sarcocosa, coca, excuse me. Sweet box is what most people know it by. There are quite a few varieties out there. I have, I have this one, the purple stem. Purple stem, they say only gets to be 18 inches, and they're right. I didn't read the next line, which says it spreads by stolons. And you're going, okay. I planted it in front of my house. This is in my porch. And I am going to have to move it to a place where it can be happy and do what it does, because I'm constantly digging out the little sections. Now you get to give them away, and I always tell them it produces more, but that is a great one. And it does have a real pretty little purple stem, and the flowers smell wonderful. This is the Hookeri Hamamillus or Hamillus. And that one has little white flowers. It also has a purple berry, and that smells wonderful. It does not spread very quickly. And this one, Confusa, I have one on either side of my porch. They have the this one has red berries. This one has purple berries. And again, in the wintertime, I have one on either side. I have my paper bush over here. I have the deciduous azaleas in the later spring or winter, and I can get the greatest smells.
And
It's
the
just,
Calycanthus is taller, right?
it supposedly gets to be about 5 to 6 feet tall. Now that one's been in the ground for about 4 years, and it's crappy ground. I mean, it's really awful. So it's only about 3 feet tall at the tallest. But yeah, I'm hoping it gets to be 6 feet tall.
How deer resistant is the purple stem?
Very, very. Because I have deer, I mean, they literally will come up on my porch and they have touched that. So.
And they died.
But the flowers are nondescript, but you can smell them. They're sort of like a lot of the osmanthus. Most of those flowers are not as beautiful as some other flowers, but you can just smell that forever.
When does it bloom?
This one, mine are almost always blooming by January, February. I think March probably too, depending on what your spring is like. Star magnolias are just wonderful. They come in all different colors. I just have white ones in my yard. They have, again, this is another one that you need to smell when you buy it. I have a huge one. This guy right here is on the side, and he's pretty small. He's been in the ground for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, and that's all the taller he is. But I have another one that's right here in front of the old house that's planted at the same time, and it's probably 20 feet tall. It's just absolutely beautiful. And this last spring was its most beautiful flowering I've ever had because we didn't have any frosts for a long time, and it stayed gorgeous for just weeks. But it's also a twofer. One side, they're almost identical blooms. If you look at them very closely, you can see a slight difference, but one smells and one doesn't. So again, it's always a good idea to buy it in bloom because you want to make sure you get the smell that you're after. But that's such a pretty plant. And February, March, so it gets hit with the frost a lot. Like at the same time that tulip magnolias bloom, so they get frosted a lot. But again, they do come out. You can see on this one, there's so many that are out and they're already petals on the ground, but this guy's not out. There's very tight buds. So it's, again, being a winter plant, it knows not to do it all at once because it could be in trouble if it did. And everybody should have a Prunus mume. I mean, they're just amazing trees. You can get smaller trees. There are some that only get to be about 6 or 7 feet tall and about the same, maybe 10 feet wide. Just beautiful. But that's another one that you can see here. This one is in full bloom. That's on my phone. I'm so happy with that picture. Full bloom, but here's one that's not even close to coming out. This guy might be out in a couple of days. You can see some other ones back here that are very tight. Here you go. These are not, I mean, they're just not even out yet. But on some of these nice warm days, the pollinators, as you can see, will come out. They need something. So Mother Nature has provided them with food by these winter plants that bloom on pretty days. So they have something to go to. But a Prunus mume, they come in white and the light pink and dark pink and doubles, some with almost raspberry colors. They have a couple of weeping ones here at the Arboretum that are just beautiful. Bridal Veil, is that the white? Just gorgeous.
Do they all smell good?
I have never had one not smell good. Now, and I stick my nose in a Prunus mume everywhere I go. I just love them. They do have different fragrances. Some of them are a little sweeter. Some of them have a little bit of spicy flavor. This guy has a little more spice to him. This one, I think what he smells like. I can't remember. I think he's lighter smell. He's not, but this guy, oh my gosh, when he's out, I can smell him way away. He's just wonderful. And you can see he's happy. The little bee is happy. So that makes me happy. Now, there are a few things.
Wait, what
That
about osmanthus?
Osmanthus?
Yeah, you don't have it on your list.
I don't have lots of things on the list. Osmanthus is a wonderful plant. There are so many different kinds of osmanthus. They have one out here that is gorgeous. The orange scepter, orange something right up here by the fantasy crepe myrtles. That's a beautiful, it has a pretty flower too, but it's a wonderful smell.
They don't all smell.
But no, they don't, because the people say the goshiki
Yes.
has a smell. None of mine do. Mine are beautiful. I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous, but they have. I'm glad you said that, because people say, oh yeah, they.
Not really.
Okay, so some of them do not, but the
Fragrance.
yeah, fragrance does. Like the orange one, the orange. I think it's orange scepter, orange spire, orange something. It's wonderful. Some of them have yellow flowers, small little yellow flowers that are very pretty. Again, go there when they're in bloom so you can smell it and make sure, first of all, that you like the smell and that they do have a smell. And you have to make sure of the size, because fragrance can get huge. I mean, my neighbor has one, and when it's in bloom, I mean, it's 2 stories tall. And she has actually cut it so that she can walk underneath it. She has like a little tunnel through it. But when that tree is in bloom and the wind is blowing my direction, my whole yard smells like it. And we're not like, close. We're probably, from here to the parking lot away from each other. So I can smell that.
But on the other hand, we worry about it getting too big, but what does it tell you? It's a very hardy plant.
Yes.
I've put it in a number of different environments, and it does fine. I'm just amazed at this plant.
It's a big plant, but if you have the room, it's a great barrier, because it is evergreen. And the goshiki has like little prickly leaves. A lot of the osmanthus have slightly serrated edges to them, but some of them are also very smooth. So you can get a wide variety.
And the deer don't seem to bother it.
Nope.
That's true. I don't have that problem.
That's true.
So anybody else have a question on something that I've missed? Because there are so many daffodils. I mean, you can get some wonderful smelling daffodils in the spring. Just lovely fragrances, but you have to, y'all don't want to sit here all day. Now you have stuff that doesn't smell good. The Bradford pear, which of course you shouldn't plant anyway, it stinks. I'm sorry, it just has a foul smell to me.
These are the
I mean, it is beautiful. It is really pretty, but there are so many other things that you can plant that will be just as beautiful and not smell so bad. And we had a really bad wind down my direction, and I was coming up today, it was Wednesday last week, and 2 of the Bradford pears that are still left on that road were half what they were on Wednesday morning because they were torn up. And then this, you just, did any of y'all get to see the one at State when it was blooming?
Yes.
I didn't get there. I'm so ticked that I didn't do that, but that's just fun. I mean, Mother Nature's just having a ball with this kind of stuff. So, and then you have other things. You have skunk cabbage, and you have lots of things that have very peculiar odors, and you just go, okay, whatever I mean, that's a fly pollen. I mean, flies are big pollinators. Most people don't realize that pollination happens with flies a lot. And there you go. Anybody have any questions about anything? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, 2 plants in my yard that are fragrant that I really enjoy, but that I don't ever hear about them being fragrant. One is a lot of the hollies are very fragrant.
Oh, gosh, yes, you're right, yes.
And then another that I never hear about being fragrant, but in my yard, it very much is the oak leaf hydrangea. When you get a big one that's in full bloom.
Really?
And
I'll have to
it's a
stick
real-
my nose in mine.
It's a real subtle fragrance. If I go up and stick my nose in it, I don't really smell it very, very much. But if I
Okay.
walk by it 10 feet away, it's like, okay, what is that that's in bloom that smells so good?
Interesting. I will have to, I don't know about that one, and I have 2 huge ones. But that's very nice. I'll have to definitely look into those. But yes, hollies are lovely. They have again, a bloom you don't see, but you can smell it. It's just, and you know it's there because the pollinators are coming.
Also, Convallaria.
Oh, yes.
Convallaria has a nice honey smell.
And that's a pretty plant too. And it doesn't get very big.
And the flower, it can be 5 or 6.
Oh, can it? Okay. I put mine in the woods, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
probably why.
they'll say small. And that's a nice
Would you
flower
repeat
too.
the name again, please?
Convallaria, F-O-T-H.
Anybody else?
What about hyacinth? Did you mention
No. Yeah. You're talking about the bulb hyacinth.
that? Yeah,
Oh, yes.
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, the hyacinth smell of those in the early spring, just so beautiful. And so many colors and the sizes. You can get some that are now giant. I just have the purple on one side and pink on the other. Don't know how I did that, but I did. And they smell wonderful. I like cutting them, and you'll use, sometimes with the older bulbs, you'll get a second bloom on them. But hyacinths are a wonderful, wonderful smell. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a suggestion on a sunny walk where you have lots of lavender or complementary plant with fragrance for that sun?
Oh gosh, full sun. You want it evergreen?
Specifically with lavender? Specifically with lavender? or is
The
that
lavender's
your-
already there, I just wanted to intersperse it with something else that would be complementary color.
Because you need something that's going to take a very dry situation, because your lavender is very dry.
What color is the lavender? Is it, I mean, the foliage, is it silver or?
The Provence, and then it's a whole mix, but it's all doing well.
Great.
Yeah. I would tend to put a little bit of rosemary.
I was going to say some of the herbs would take the same type of soil conditions and watering conditions. The oregano, the rosemary, sage, yes. So a lot of the salvias would probably do fairly well there too.
Lemon thyme ground cover.
There you go. Yeah, we had that picture. It's a lovely little ground cover. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Not so much because of the smell itself, but because it impressed me as being sort of unusual. My wife and I are from the north. When we moved here, had to have a southern magnolia. We got one planted, it, beautiful flowers, nice smelling. But on our property, we also have a couple of native big leaf magnolias.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be my smell versus other people's smell, but they smell terrible. Southern magnolias are great, but those big leaf magnolias smell like wet sweat socks.
Okay, I haven't ever heard it that way. I don't consider it a sweet smell. It's sort of a smell, sort of green to me. I don't know whether that makes sense, but some things just smell green. But yeah, you're right. They are not known for they're known for their pretty big
Move like
leaves.
this lady. Move away from it.
Beautiful, look like the native, or the regular southern magnolias, but not the smell.
But those leaves are terrible when they fall. They're a mess.
Well, it's in
Big
a
old-
natural area, so it's a little mulch, perfect for us, but
Yes, ma'am.
Some of the Sasanqua camellias have a fragrance.
Yes, they do.
Musky.
Yes, I love sasanquas. I like sasanquas better than the japonicas anyway. Don't know why, but I do. But yes, a lot of them, there's like, I like it, cinnamon Cindy and those kind of things where, yes, some beautiful, beautiful smells to them. Some of them are more mild than others, but again, sniff it when it's in bloom. A real nursery person's not going to laugh at you. You know, if you're going up there and you're smelling everything, they'll understand. All right, well, yes, sir.
One you didn't mention, perhaps wisely, is the lilac bush. A friend gave us one, and I don't know exactly what variety it is, but it's gorgeous looking. Half the family cannot stand the smell, the other half loves it.
Well, I grew up with a lilac bush that was 2 stories tall and amazing fragrance. To get them to live here, you need a more alkaline soil. You need to put really, you need to put lime around them to make them even the least bit happy, and you might have a different smell. I don't know whether the lime would affect that, but it'll make them happier and will make them bloom. Miss Kim, I think, is one of the ones that we have in this area that do fairly well. I've never really smelled Miss Kim. Yes,
You
ma'am.
drive by my house, you'll
Boomerang
get it.
lilac.
Bloomerang?
The bloomerang lilac, we call it bloomerang because it blooms more than once a year.
Oh, okay.
And they got it out here in the Arboretum, and I don't think it's been out in the market that long, but you can find them everywhere
Okay.
now, and they don't get that big. 4,
And it
6.
smells good?
Wonderful.
Okay.
And it's better than Miss Kim.
Oh, is it?
I've tried both, yeah.
Okay. But I had taken the old-fashioned lilac that I wanted to have in my yard, and I planted it, and it grew, and it did okay, and it wasn't in the hot afternoon sun, which would just kill it in a second. But it never bloomed, and it never bloomed. And then I heard about the lime, so I limed it, and it still didn't bloom the next year. And I limed it again, and I told it, I said, if you don't bloom, I'm getting rid of you. And the next year,
Just to spite you.
yes. I said, okay, you bloomed, you can stay. So it has 1 or 2 blooms from time to time. So, they know what you're doing. And that's another thing. When it comes to plants, if you have something in your yard that you don't like, plants are not supposed to give you high blood pressure. You are supposed to enjoy them. They are supposed to make you relax. You are supposed to smile when you see a plant that you have in your yard. If you have a plant in your yard you don't like, get rid of it. There is something that will take its place that will make you smile. I had 2 beautiful black dragon, begins with a C. What are they? Not evergreen.
Cryptomeria.
Thank you, cryptomerias. So I got the C, right? But they were in front of my house. They should have been, and it faces north, so they got no sun. These poor things were starting to grow like this. They were huge. They were probably 6, 7 feet tall. Beautiful plants. I would go past them. I go, I hate you. I hate you. Because you're leaning forward. I would try to pull them back, and I don't want a thing pulling my plants back and have to look at that. So eventually, I got rid of both of them. And one of them just died, which is fine with me, and the other one
From neglect.
Yes, because I hated, I was searing it all the time, going, oh, I don't like you. But you get rid of them. And then I got to put in all my fun things. I put Pieris in there, and I put my Sarcococa. I put Japanese painted fern. I put a bunch of hostas in there. Just Blatilla, the ground orchid. Just some beautiful things. And I am so much happier walking into my house, and I don't see those things anymore. So truly, if you have a crepe myrtle that is way too big and it's doing stuff you don't like, get rid of it, because there are crepe myrtles that will fit whatever situation you need. And the new cultivars out there and the colors just are amazing. So planting is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to make joy in your life. Dennis?
Thank you, Cindy. Let's go ahead and swap out.
Where do we put that?
Take your pocket.
As a master gardener, I had written a series of articles that appeared in the Master Gardener publication called Dirt, which I think is a very, very handy name, nice and short and to the point. And I've reproduced some of those in a little compilation here that I just calling Notes on Garden Sense. And I had no idea that there was going to be any kind of a turnout like this. I'm quite surprised and quite happy for Cindy that she had a good-sized crowd. What that meant, I've only got a few of these, which I did pass out. But if you're interested, see me. I assume that most of the folks here have email, so I can just pass along the notes via the email. Okay, and so that was one of the things that I wanted to do today, was to try to get out some more information. And the other thing was to top it up a little bit for odd smelling plants. Now, we've already had some discussion here about what is deer resistant, what isn't deer resistant. This is a topic very significant to me because I have deer coming through my property, 3, 4 at a time. Matter of fact, I almost got knocked over one time because I didn't realize that there was a mama deer and her fawn that were taking a shortcut on one of my paths, and I got between the two of them, and that fawn just took off like a shot. We're just like, boom, and didn't quite know, I guess, how to run down a trail because the fawn ran right into me. My wife is, of course, of this opinion that, they're all cute, they're all wonderful, and they're all eating everything I plant. So obviously I started to really take seriously, and of course there are books out there. I'm sure if you're doing the deer thing, I'm sure you've seen them. What is deer resistant? What isn't deer resistant? Well, if they're really hungry, nothing's deer resistant. There was some little discussion about deciduous azaleas. By the way, I'm a collector of fragrant plants. Surprise there, right? And one of the things that it said was that a lot of the deciduous azaleas are fragrant. And I find that much more the case than with the evergreens. Okay. So, of course, I had to get some deciduous azaleas, and I put them out, and they, of course, what are they going to do? At some point, they're going to green out, right? Oh, those tender little leaves. What self-respecting deer can really resist something like that? I mean, that's not quite as good as a hosta, but pretty close. And they would just eat them right down and basically kill them, Now, of course, I get desperate at times, and I'll just take some green plastic fencing, and I'll put it in a roll and put it around things. It's kind of like, okay, take that, deer, right? But the other solution, obviously, is to listen to what people say. Well, I can't put up an 8-foot fence. That's not going to happen. And I can't put up electrified fence, which some people do. And actually, if you're in a place where you can do that, there was a lecture here years ago at the Arboretum, a very, very good talk. And this gentleman was saying, actually, with electrified fence, you want to have it on all the time. What you do is you take a little bit of aluminum foil, put a little bit of peanut butter on it, put that over your wire, put that in different places. The deer will smell the peanut butter. It'll come up and it'll stick its nose, and of course it's zapped, right? And after it gets zapped about 3-4 times, it realizes your yard is haunted, and it doesn't want to come back anymore. And the story goes that you can then turn off the power, and they're not going to bother you the rest of the season. Okay, well, can't do that either. So what can you do? Well, of course, there's the thing about all the different repellents you can spread, and you and I know what happens there. They wash off, and so on. So better to be serious about finding things that the deer don't eat. Well, one of the plants or outdoor foliage that we didn't talk about so far this morning is Hedychium. And this turns out to be one of my favorite plants, because not only does it have a smell, and for those of you, probably a lot of you already know, it smells like star anise, but the leaves are tough, which according to deer people, people who worry about keeping deer under control, those are 2 things you're looking for. Okay, so, and I like that that and a smell myself. Okay, so I have I probably have 7 different species of Hedychium in my yard. Just love it. And of course, in the summer, you know, it's a nice stable plant. In the winter, the leaves are going to stay on it. Another plant that in the odd smell department. Now, let me back up a little bit here. Clearly, there are a lot of plants that smell like lemons or oranges, or they're spicy. My handout talked a little bit about some of the spicy things, and the viburnums we talked about quite often have kind of a spicy character to them. The Calycanthus can have a spicy character. There are a lot of things out there. I'm not saying that they're not there, and by all means, go after some little. I love lemon balm, for example. The stuff is just very hardy, and you know, the old story, nothing's going to eat it. But if you want to get into some of the stranger things, I brought along a plant, and I'm gonna pass. Let's see, which one is hidden? I want to pass this around. The leaf here. Try that, and we'll start. See if we can. I know it's kind of heavy, but try rubbing the leaf. Okay. This is known by different common names. In this book, they call it glory bower, and it's a clerodendron. There are clerodendrons around here. This particular clerodendron, actually, I brought from Florida. I checked with our local guru. He's one of the people here that works at the Arboretum. And because I quite often play a little game with him called, you know, what's my plant? And so he said, oh, I know that one. That's called peanut butter plant. I mean, of course he knew the scientific name, but you know, peanut butter plant. Okay. Well, so I tried it again. Didn't smell like peanut butter to me. But the interesting thing is, it's got a really nice flower. Okay. And so, you know, should I keep it? Shouldn't I keep it? And now we get into the category of what's invasive and what isn't invasive. Okay. Since this comes from Florida, what it does in the winter, it totally dies back, it totally disappears, and then come the spring, it comes up in the strangest places. You know, I'm like, how did you get over there? You know, I don't mind that. You know, because like I say, it's got this smell that apparently the deer really don't like. And I like the flower. Now the inflorescence isn't especially fragrant, I don't think, but I'm very picky about that. And as a matter of fact, I object to some of the books. As a matter of fact, this book is one of the offenders. You know, it will say, well, this is designed to help you look at something and decide if you can give it a name.
This is the peanut butter plant we're passing now, right?
That's the peanut butter plant.
Okay, I
so
got that.
the alleged peanut butter plant.
Yeah. Now, what is this one that you're speaking of with the flowers?
Also peanut butter
Same
plant.
thing, this is the flowering
It's just
version, the one
Well,
that
I didn't
flowers.
recognize it because the leaves are limpy looking. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think.
They're so perky on this.
Well, that's because that one is semi-planted, and this one is just, you know, sticks in water, as Chris would like to. I walked in here and he says, "Oh, sticks in water. We love sticks in water. You got any more?" You know. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. We'll pass, I can actually, I've got enough of these, I can actually pass the few around. You know, I should just say very quickly, my background is chemistry. So I love it when I get these weird smells, because I wonder, what the devil is that chemical, you know, or what is that coming from? So, yeah, we'll get a chance to pass this one around as well. But, so, anyway, what I take offense to in these books, and I've got, I don't know how many fragrant plant books, and you look something up and it says, or you look up something in another book where it just says it's fragrant or not fragrant. Really? I mean, Hedychium, gardenia, daphne, Nicera fragrantissima, these things are all knocking my socks off, okay? And yet, I go to, you know, a plant sale, and something is marked fragrant, and so I take a little sniff. Nothing. So I get kind of a little closer, nothing. I finally take this plant and I stick it under my nose, literally, and take a snootful. I can barely smell it. Yeah, I know, but I want to be able to walk into my yard. In January and February, I can walk into my yard, I can smell daphne almost anywhere. Now that's a fragrant plant. Okay. So anyway, this one is this inflorescence is of a character where it's not very fragrant, as far as I'm concerned. That's how I would listen to it, but it does have this, you know, crazy smell in the leaves. So all I got to do is just brush it like that, and I kind of like, whoa, I know who you are, right? And I did one other plant I wanted to share with you. By the way, how many of you are familiar with clerodendron? Are you? Quite a few. Okay. What about Houtunia?
Yes. Yeah.
How many of you know that one?
Invasive as hell.
Well, the gentleman here referred to its being invasive. You know, that's another one of these things like fragrance is on a scale, okay? If I got microstegium or something like that, okay, that's invasive as hell. This guy loves to have wet feet. So if you don't put him in something like wet, where it's really wet, it doesn't do all that well, okay? And
it'll grow in clay, guys. If it's wettish.
If it's wet, it'll take off. I at a master conference, a master gardener get together. We quite often there's going to be somebody bidding away plants, and they had crocosmia. Do we know crocosmia? A tiny little bulb. So I took a lot of those home, put them all over the place. Suddenly they were everywhere. Okay. Talk about invasive. I can almost just kind of throw the plant down somewhere and it'll grow. It's amazing. So I don't know. There are degrees of invasive as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, what I wanted to do. Well, most of you know this plant, so there's probably no need for me to... Who hasn't ever smelled this one? Here.
What's that again, please?
Houtunia cordata, I think is the...
Does it have a common name?
Right.
what is the common name?
Chameleon plant.
Chameleon plant.
It changes color, becomes very colorful
It's
in
got
the
some
sun,
reddish
white
in it.
flower.
Okay.
Ripple and reddish smells good.
Yeah, reddish pink.
But it'll root down 18 inches and spread.
Yes. Until we forever get behind a clay.
Well, with that one, I bought it
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Sandra at the same time, side by side. Sandra taking over.
Oh,
More.
I don't know how late it is, but that's your question, it's blooming now.
It goes this,
Yeah.
Philodendron, yeah, I mean, that's,
in clay. It's just a little moist. It's a heavy wet.
I mean, I just picked this, right? Oh, rub it with me, rub it with me. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah, the deer don't like things that taste. You know,
What's the question, Dennis?
They want lettuce. They want hostage, which is deer lettuce.
Dennis? What was the question, Dennis? What was the question you just answered? We didn't hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry, so somebody asked me a question, what was it I need to tell Chris?
What my question was, how
I think there
long
was a
does
question
this?
back over here about deer. Okay, we
Oh,
got the answer.
I'm sorry.
They got a landscaper working on the yard. We gotta leave.
So collect those odd smelling plants and let me know how they do. I'll be fascinated.
Thank you, Dennis.